Hi, so in our little seated Pilates sessions, one of the things I tend to notice is that people tend to sit with the tailbone tucked underneath them and the rest of the body slumped forwards, and the stomach gets tight and it puts pressure on the pelvic floor and it puts pressure on our organs as well. So very similar to how I'm sitting here now talking to you in this kind of slumped under position. But also when we're dealing with things like worrying about what's happening in the world with the pandemic, and maybe worrying about your finances and what's going to happen with work and with your family and with your house and with your partner, and if your parents are going to get it or anything like that, or if you're going to get it, then we kind of live with this underlying worry and fear, and that lives in our bodies, and it will show up in how we walk, how we stand, how we move, how we breathe, how you hold your spine and your hips. So I've got a little way of working through this. I'm just going to talk you through it. It's not going to take very long, but it takes practice, yes. So I'm going to sit on the front of your chair and just allow yourself to notice how you've chosen to sit with your feet. Where do they land? Where do you place your feet when you sit on your chair? Can you notice your tailbone? Can you notice your spine? Okay, your hands just rest on your thighs. And just notice as you're sitting on the chair, can you notice your sit bones? Can you be aware of your sit bones? There's bony bits at the bottom of your pelvis. So I like to imagine that my sit bones are like wheels and they go forwards and backwards as if they're just taking me through the world, little wheels. So just allow yourself to feel that you're rolling on those wheels, going forwards, but then they go backwards, going forwards, and then they go backwards. So just your sit bones. And notice as they do that, it's a very small, gentle movement. And what you're doing is when you roll the weight forward onto the front of your sit bones, the belly tends to protrude, to come forward a little bit, push outwards. And then when you tuck under, it all goes back, and you notice that you'll sink downwards. Your rib cage will come down and you'll feel small. And then come forwards onto the front of your sit bones, and you start to feel the opening up a little bit of space. And then you go backwards. So the navel goes back and the belly button goes back. So notice as you start to do this, what happens to your head. Your head might change. The distance between your chin and your belly might change. So at some points it will be closer, and other points it will be further away. So when you're rolling that weight onto the back of your sit bones and you're on your tailbone, you feel quite small, as if you're curling yourself up into a ball, as if you're trying to protect everything. And like a little wood mouse curled up, a little dormouse curled up. And then bring your attention to the middle of your back, so around about here. And imagine my hand is just gently there, or as a guide, maybe the back of your chair, and the middle of your back is going backwards, and then it's coming forwards, and then it's going backwards, and then it's coming forwards. And think about the word small. So as your middle of your back goes backwards, you're shortening everything and making yourself small. And when you bring the weight forward into the front of the sit bones, and you bring your rib cage forward or your back forwards, you're thinking of the word tall. So going into small, the middle of your back goes back, and then think of the word tall. How would you move in your spine to feel tall? Does the middle of your back fold forwards? And then fold the middle of your back backwards, as if you're bending there, and then bring it forwards as if you're lifting and folding. Thinking tall and then thinking small. And then notice the head. As the head moves, the chin drops. And then the chin lifts as you roll the weight forward onto the front of your pelvis. The middle of your back comes forward and you're thinking tall. And then thinking small as everything goes back. The chin drops and the middle of your back folds and goes back. And then you gently come forwards onto the front of your sit bones, everything comes forward and your chin lifts. You create more space and you're thinking tall. And then go back to that word small. How does that feel in your body when you think small and you start to curl under and you collapse into this position. And then you come back forwards onto the front of your sit bones, the middle of your back comes forward and your chin lifts and you're thinking tall. And then think small, curling, as if you're lying in bed on your side and you're just tucking your tailbone underneath you, ready to go to sleep. And then thinking tall, as you lengthen, the weight comes forward, the middle of your back comes forward, and your head lifts, and the back of your head looks down towards your tailbone. And then thinking small, as you contract. And look at what happens to your body when you're doing that, and how much pressure gets pushed down, and how much smaller you are here. The chest bone actually tries to come and meet the pubic bone, but notice what happens to your back. It lengthens, so it goes back so far that you're stretching and lengthening everything in your back, so your back muscles might feel that they can't support you as well. And notice what happens to your shoulder blades. They move away from each other. And try and keep your head here, and then see if you can move your pelvis. It doesn't move very well, yeah? If you keep down here, your pelvis really doesn't want to move, and it's quite hard to move your shoulders, and it's quite hard to move your neck. You can't really find that you can look around you in this position. So come back to trying to feel tall again, so take the weight forward into your sit bones, and bring the middle of your back forwards and lift your head, and then see if you can look around you much more freely. And you feel that if you keep your head here, you can move your pelvis a lot more as well. To find what feels like the middle between small and tall, if you're putting those words together, small and tall would make a whole new word. You try and think of how it would sound like. And then find that midpoint between small and tall, and as if both words have come together and you are there in the middle. And that takes practice, and lots of emotions might come up. Sometimes some people feel a bit tearful or angry, frustrated, and just notice what emotions come up, because they get held in the tissues and in your belly and in your gut. And we're just trying to find some release with movement to bring all of this out, and you can just then notice it and let it go. Happy practicing.